Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the heart of it. I'm your host, Andrea Thompson. Now, you have been asking for this podcast. You've been inboxing me saying, Andrea, start a podcast. Andrea, start a podcast. And I'm like, can I actually start a podcast? Can I really do that? Would people actually listen? Honestly, I had no intention of doing this. So I really just want to thank everyone who inboxed me privately to say, Andrea, you've got this, girl. I've listened to you. If you are joining me for the first time here on YouTube, bless up yourself. Thank you for stopping by. If you're joining me from TikTok, from Instagram, from Facebook, a very, very, very special welcome to you as well, because guess what? I would not be doing this without you. So I thought about what the heart of it meant to me and my story. How do I really want to tell my story on this platform? I've been through a lot, and I'm not going to play a victim in my story. I'm not the victim in my story, I'm the star of my story, right? Because even though I've been through a lot, I still have so much to give God thanks for. I still think that those things were necessary in order for me to become the human being that I am today. And so I won't look at it from a victim standpoint. I'll look at it from a standpoint of God chose me to have gone through some of the things that I went through because He needed me to tell this story. He needed me to have experienced poverty. He needed me to have experienced wealth. He needed me to also have been humble because of the blessings that He has in store for me coming and right now I'm living in. And so when I thought about sharing my story, I questioned how did I really want this to come across? Did I want my listeners to feel sorry for me? Or did I really want them to just see themselves within my story and to have hope if they are actually going through the same thing? Because I've shared bits and pieces of my stories on, on different platforms, and I know that I am not alone. And that's how sometimes I know that I am not alone. So I'm hoping that today's episode will find someone and let them know that they are not alone and that there is actually hope at the end of that very dark tunnel that you're going through. My decision to start this podcast had me reflecting on my life a lot. I cried a lot in thinking about how I was going to tell my story. I really feel like I haven't healed from every single thing that I've gone through yet, but I think I'm at the phase of my life where I've actually accepted why I went through what I actually went through. One of the most traumatic things I experienced at age 11. And I remember that day. I remember what I was wearing. I remember what it felt like. I feel like I can actually smell the air that day. It was a hot day. It was during the summer. And I remember my mother said to me, we're going to go look for your aunt. And I thought to myself, why am I the only one going to look for this aunt? Because my sister and I had the same father, right? And so I put my clothes on. Of course, I had one pair of shoes. I don't know if a lot of us grew up like this in Jamaica, right? Where we only had one good clothes. We call it going out clothes. And so I put on my blue jeans pants, and it was a floral blue top. And I also had a glass slippers. You remember those glass slippers? So that was the outfit I was wearing that day. And I remember I was 11 because I had just passed common entrance to go to Alpha Academy. And so I got dressed, put my hair in one. I used to wear a peacock, and went on the road with my mother. So we come off at Duppy Gate right there because I was familiar with the area because I come from Southside, right? So we came off at Duppy Gate and we walked up the road up to Diana Drive. And my aunt came out, and she was very light skinned. She didn't look like any of my other family members that I actually knew. She actually mixed because that side of the family, they're mixed. So she came out, my mother explained who she was, and she let us into the house. Now, when she let us into the house, I heard them talking about this man called named Denver. At the time, I thought that they were talking about my actual father because I was like, because they were referring to the man as my father. And so I was like, who is this Denver that they're referring to? But honestly, in my little peace brain at the time, I was still thinking that it was my dad because he had a lot of aliases. His name was Tony. They call him Headback. Them call him all kind of bombshell, all kind of other names. So I was honestly in this moment, I never expected my mother to tell me what she told me. So my aunt then went into the house to get some money to give my mother. And my mother just turned at me, this like this, and said, Ed Buck is not your father. This man named Denver is your real father. And of course, I burst into tears because in that moment, I think she took my dad away from me. I think that some people would have felt excited because, they're looking at this big house, they're looking at this new aunt that they have who seemingly have money to give my mother, right? And some people I feel like would have felt excited, but I liked my poor dad at the time because honestly, he was very good to me. Looking back, my mother said that he wasn't a great dad to us because he would not come home sometimes. But as a kid, you don't really see that, right? You only see that when him come home, him bring a big bag of banana chips, right? And him put me upon him neck and him carry me go wherever and him go buy me balloon chance. And I was happy, right? Because I had a dad and he had a bar and a shop and we could go down there and we could get anything that we wanted. So in my mind, I wasn't even poor either, right? I had a father and I had a mother and I lived with both parents. And even though he never helped us with homework and those were the things that my mother would complain about, that didn't matter to me because I had a dad. And in that moment, she took my dad from me. Now, they had split up during that time. And so I think he had stopped taking care of both of us because he's my sister's father, but he's not my real dad. But I didn't know that. This man never ever let me feel like he wasn't my father. I had no inclination. I only had a few ideas because people used to tell me that I look so different, but I really had no idea. You get what I'm saying? Like, I would never have guessed that, oh, this man wasn't my father. I was 11. Maybe by the time I was at 13, 15, I would have started to question why I look so different from my sister. But in that moment, I was Ellis. I was Andrea Ellis, and I knew who I was. I had a grandma, and I had aunties, and I had people who were my family members, right? And I felt so sad that he wasn't my father, that my sister and I didn't have the same dad anymore. So my mother then turned to me and she said that, you know what, you should keep this between just us. And I said, yes, sure. But when I went home, I told my sister right away. Right away, as me go home, guys, me tell my sister that, listen, Tony is not my father, because we used to call him Tony. We never call him dad. Fun fact, I don't call my mother mom either. I call her by her first name. So that was very traumatic for me. And I don't think in that moment I even realized how that really impacted me and impacted my struggle with my identity because who am I now? Because my real dad, I don't know him. I don't have his name. I don't even know if this man had accepted me. I don't know if this man even knew about me. But in my mind, I was like, so who am I? What's my real name? My real name, guys, is Binda. You will see on some of my profiles, I call myself Delia Binda. Delia is my pet name, and Binda is my last name by my real dad's side. So that really impacted my life and me trying to figure out who I was at the time. But even then, when I was thinking with my little brain, I didn't really realize that that had left such a great scar on me until later on in my life when I was 13 and then my mother went to prison. So when my mother went to prison, I've talked about this story. I told you guys a little bit about this story. If you're joining me from TikTok, if you're joining me from Instagram, then you would have seen a little snippet about that story when I found out that my mother went to England and she didn't come back of she had gone to drop off someone's child because my mother has always been that kind of woman who will help people. I have to give her that. Like, she's always gonna help somebody. If you ask her, she's not gonna say no. She'll give away my stuff to other people. And so I always think that that was her downfall until I became older and I realized that that was her blessing. Like that was her way of blessing other people, is to just always help. But she helped this time to her own detriment, I think. So she went to drop off someone's child in England who she was taking care of, and she just never came back. We waited for her for months to come home. We had to stop going to school. I was going to Alpha Academy at the time, and I had to drop out of school. And let me tell you something, we really went through it in that moment. I knew what suffering felt like. And I will tell people, I'm never going to go through any more suffering in my life because I've suffered enough as a child. Those years, you see that year between when my mother went to prison and when I became a teenager, like those years were the toughest years of my life. And I said, I'm never going to go through any more hardship because that's it. My hardship done from them time there. So if you want to see God bless me right now, it's because I've been through it. So she was struggling with us, of course. She had five of us, and she really didn't have any support from the dads, from any of our fathers. No, I know now that this man is my father, but I still don't know him. I've never met him, still don't meet him. And we're just there living, and she's just there trying to survive. My name father, he had stopped taking care of me and stopped taking care of my sister. So my mother then now went to England to drop off this child, and somebody convinced her to stay in England, and she stayed. So she stayed and said that she was gonna go back to school and stuff like that. She was actually looking about going back to school, and somehow she got mixed up into something illegal. Now, I won't get into the details of that because that's her private business, but she went to prison, which is a part of my story. So I'll tell that part. We were literally there waiting for her to come back, waiting for her to send clothes for us and stuff. And she didn't. We didn't hear, we just stopped hearing from her. And then one day, my grandmother called and said that my mother got sentenced 8 years in prison. I can tell you that that broke me. That really broke me because my mother was my everything. My mother was my provider. My mother was like my mother and my father in one at this point. No, my mother was my protector because really my mother I did hot, and nobody couldn't trouble us because my mother would make sure that she stand firm in protecting us. Not just us as girls, but also my brothers. And so not having her around really impacted everyone, including my extended family, because, like I said, she's always helping other people. And she also had two of my cousins living with us, and it impacted them as well. So there was no more backbone for the family when she left and when that happened to her, because she was a person who you could go to get a plate of food, right? In the family. She was a person. But what I found funny was that nobody else stepped up when my mother went to prison. Nobody, none of my uncles, nobody. I didn't really have any auntie like that, right? And nobody stepped up. No, absolutely nobody stepped up. And I really think that those two incidents when I was that young helped to shape who I am today, because it taught me hardship, and it drew me back to one key thing that my mother taught me, and that was how to pray. Because let me tell you something, now ask if I never got on my knees and pray as a little girl. Every day I would talk to God. My internal monologue was just going and going and going because I felt as though I was going crazy in that little moment, in that moment as a young girl at age 13, 14, I was going crazy. I was like, God, I can't take anymore. So one night I said, I cried my eyes out, guys. I cry out, my ball the night. When I say my ball the night, my ball to God. Nobody can tell me that God isn't real. Because that night I spoke to God in the most realest, rawest way possible. And I said, God, I can't take anymore. But remember, I had been introduced to my dad's family. So one at the time, I went back up there when I wasn't going to school because my mother was in England, and the child's father who my mother had brought up, came to Jamaica and he got passports for me and my sister. So now my sister is in England as well too. So I'm all on my own with my brothers. My brother, one of my brother, Kirk, he used to buy food and stuff for us. He was 18 and working in construction at the time. And that is how we survived. Him and the shop lady named Miss Morgan. Miss Morgan used to give us food. I have to say she used to give us food because we used to owe this woman. When I say we used to owe the woman, the bill used to sky high. I think one of the time the bill was maybe about $80,000. My brother used to trust food from Miss Morgan all the time, and she used to help us. But this particular night, I remember feeling so down and out and depressed. And I said, God, I can't take it anymore. You have to let my father call me now. You have to let him come for me. I said, God, I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. You have to let him come for me, God. Just let my father call me, because I had gone back up by the house to give them my number because we had a house phone at the time. So I gave them my number to call me, to give it to him so that he could call me. So after I said amen, amen, I kid you not, guys. After I said amen, my father was on the line. The phone rang. I answered the phone and it was my dad on the line. And him say, "Well, go on, baby. Me hear say you're not going to school. Me hear say your mother there jail, you know. And way. And I cried. And him said, "No matter cry, man, baby. I'm going to send some money for you. I'm going to send some money for you." And he sent 1,000 US at the time. I think that was maybe about 30,000 Jamaican dollars at the time. He sent the money in my brother's name because he was 18 and could have collected the money. That money was meant to get me back into school, but I couldn't get back into school, guys, because Alpha had deregistered me, and they just couldn't get me into a school because I didn't have a parent with me. And I ended up just spending the money on food and, and a few little clothing items, and just that was it. A few months later, my father came, and I know that that man saved me. If that man never did anything at all for me in this life, I know he actually saved me. So he came back for me, and he brought me a suitcase of clothes, and he brought me a suitcase of shoes, and that really warmed my heart. I was happy. I felt like I had a dad, and I got to meet him. I got to really see my father for the very first time, guys. My father was a little rough around the edges. He wasn't the soft type, but I was still happy to have met him. No, he came and he saw where I was living, and he was like, "I'm not leaving you right here." So he took me from where I was living and he brought me to Vineyard Town. And that's when my life was changed. That's when I got to know a good life. I went to live with my uncle. First, I went to live with my aunt, and that didn't work out very well. She's an angel, that woman, Antoinette. She's an angel, to be honest with you. She never had to do any of the things that she did, because after my father left me, he really didn't call again. He didn't call again. He didn't come and visit. I didn't see my dad again until I was 16. I think he had come for a party or something like that. And that's when I saw him again. But I spent about a year and a half living with my aunt, and then I went to live with my Uncle Dennis. And that man took very good care of me. That man gave me everything that I needed. That man never let me felt like I was an outsider, but deep down inside, guys, I felt like an outsider. And this is where I said the struggle with my identity comes in, because who am I really? I don't have the name Binda, and I I'm Ellis still, and I still don't have a relationship with my father. And then somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm like, do these people really even accept me? So they didn't do anything to make me feel that. And that's how sometimes our brain can play tricks on us, because they are doing everything that they could possibly do to provide for me, to give me a good life. But in my mind, I still felt like I wasn't a part of the family. I still felt like an outsider. And I spent years feeling like that. So I think sometimes that's why I don't go around. I don't come around as much, because even to this day, I don't have the Binda name. I didn't change my name, and I still struggle with I used to struggle with that. I used to struggle with that a lot. Like, do they really accept me as being a binder? So that really created a battle with my identity from a young age. And, me just trying to fit in to a group of people that I actually really didn't know. I would have lived with my uncle up until about age 18 when his wife told me that I was 18 and it was time for me to go. I didn't do anything. We didn't have any conflict, to be honest. I know this is hard to believe, but I feel as though I was close with his daughters that were not her children, and she didn't love that. I think she was young at the time because she was probably a little bit younger than I am right now, and she just didn't. She didn't love that. I didn't do anything, and if I did, she did not tell me what I did. But I remember feeling like an outsider at that moment because I said if I were her child, if I was her daughter, she wouldn't have put me out. I saw her years later. I forgave her. I've forgiven her for that. She said she was giving me tough love, but I think that I never had to go through that toughness. My uncle always had his door open though. Even though that happened, he never said anything to me. He never went against what she said. I just packed my stuff and I left and I went on my own. I went on my own at 18 and I went to live with my cousins. We were sharing rent. I was earning about $14,000 at the time and my rent was $12,500. So I don't ask him if I used to can too, man. Listen to me. I had this big man did like me. Somehow on a big man, I don't know why I only can't just see a young girl and help her. But this big man used to like me. I used to work at this college and this big man liked me. And he would buy me groceries, he would help me pay my rent, and then he would have eventually helped me to get a job at the bank. So I give thanks for that. And no, guys, I wasn't sleeping around with anybody for anything. I just used to just tie out this man for as long as I possibly could tie out this man until one day he eventually said to me that, you know, XYZ. And I was like, that ain't happening. This man actually paid for my graduation, paid for it. Imagine, I think this man was about 45 at the time or 48, and I was freaking 18. I was 18. What kind of business you have talking to an 18-year-old? Looking back, as I'm telling you, say no, that is make sure say on protect on the girls because if my father was more involved in my life, like I wouldn't even have looked at even trying to do that with you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have even entertained this man. But that happened and we were on our own. No, I was working at the bank because he had linked me up with the supervisor at the bank and one of the mortgage banks. It wasn't a bank yet, and I went there to work and I was doing great. I was doing great. The manager loved me at the time and I was doing good. And during that time is when I met my son's dad. Another traumatic experience, guys. So I met my son's dad, and this is just me making bad decisions because this is just me making bad decisions. This man was super handsome, super handsome, and really looked like he had it together. Attache case, shirt, nice pressed shirt, man. The day, the day I was walking on the street, and this man said to me, "Oh my, what elegance and class." But I didn't really have a walk, guys. I had a walk. So I was shutting on the road now, and him called to me, and I say, I look up and I smile, and I said, "I to him," and he pulled up at my feet, and him used to drive. Oh, him used to drive again. Him used to drive a Honda. Is that Honda Accord, I think? Yeah, man, I want a nice car at the time. So Honda did around the cut them time there. Was a nice, elegant looking Honda. I remember it had a TV in it and whatever. Anyway, pretty car frightened me. Anyways, I don't know, so I was used to things. We used to things, but I don't think that was it. He was very well spoken and he was super handsome. So he pulled up on my foot and I went into the car with him. He was actually going in my direction. Went into the car with him and 6 months later, I got pregnant with my son, to be honest with you. I know, yes, I wasn't acting with much sense because why? Why? I'm happy I had my son though. I had him at 19, and now my son is 19. So now my son is 19. I ended up raising my son pretty much on my own. So that is why I have to say to young ladies that don't just look on the glitz and glamour of a person. Really search their character. Because if I had taken the time to get to know this man a little bit more, I would have seen beyond the love bombing. Because he loved bomb me a lot when we just met. He would take me everywhere that I wanted to go. He would buy me anything that I wanted. Let me tell you, this man, he was a financial advisor at the time. So he was older than I was as well. My son's dad is about 13 years older than I am. So I feel like my daddy issue let me just love old man. So so because my husband now is 15 years older than I am. But I met my husband when I was way more mature and had my head screwed on a little bit more. But I got pregnant for this man, and let me tell you, the man face dropped instantly. The moment I got pregnant for this man, things changed to the point where this man actually had somebody else pregnant while I was pregnant. So we had baby. The babies were born 6 months apart, I think. Yes, 6 months apart. So the moment I found out I was pregnant, this man was really cheating on me. So I won't get into the nitty gritty of that story, but I will say to any young lady listening to this that please take the time to get to know somebody before the gloves come off. Take the time to get to know somebody before you decide to have children with them, because you best believe that that child is going to be with you for the rest of your life, and that situation is going to be with you for the rest of your life. I won't get into too much of any more of that part of the story, but I will tell you that it's the realization that my son is now 19 that caused and prompted a change in me in this season. So the other day, because I'm turning 40 this year, guys, and at the beginning of the year, I felt like I was losing my mind. I took a good look around and a good look at my life, and I said, Andrea, you've been taking care of this boy since he was a baby. And I realized that he could actually take care of himself for a little bit, because this boy would have applied for school on his own. I did help him to apply for school, but he would have applied for a loan on his own. He would have applied for, so many different things on his own, looking into getting an apartment for himself, still under my roof, but he was looking into doing those things. And I realized that the truth is that he can actually take care of himself. I had my daughter 6 years ago, almost, and she doesn't really take much to take care of. So I said to myself, Andrea, since you've been 19, you've been taking care of your son, you've been taking care of your mom, because my mother had to come live with me when I had my son because she had lost her place. And since then, I've been taking care of two households. I've been taking care of my mother, and even though she doesn't live with me now, I still, provide for her. I still make sure that she's okay. And I've been taking care of my house. And I'm like, when am I going to take care of me? I asked myself, when are you going to take care of you, Andrea? What is it that you really want to do with your life? Because everything that you've done up until now has been survival. It has been me just trying to survive, me just trying to keep a roof over my son's head and my head and my mother's head. I said, I'm a married woman. I said, I'm a married woman. Why should I why should I live like this? Why do I not go and chase my dreams? And let me tell you something. When it's time for you to make that move, you will know in your life. You will know. And let me tell you how I knew that it was time. I've been working as an executive assistant for the past 3 years, but I've been working in administration for the past over 15 years, since 2012, I would say. I've worked between office admin and marketing, but more so office admin, right? Marketing is really where my passion lies. And I've been working with this company for the past 3 years with no form of promotion, no form of growth, really, or a clear pathway to growth. They came to me with an idea because I'm very techy, but I still felt as though they wanted me to prove myself, even though I've been there for so long. God made it so that I started feeling like I wasn't a part of the team. I saw things that people said about me behind my back, about my work, and it really broke my heart. So God made me very uncomfortable in the space. I got kicked out of meetings because, and I look at it this way because I saw things were changing and I was usually in some key meetings and no, I was no longer in those meetings. Let me teach you guys something about corporate. You see, when they want to get rid of you, sometimes they exile you. They make you feel like you are no longer a part of the team. And I felt as though I was no longer a part of the team. I don't know if that was if that was their intention at the time, but I felt like I was being exiled on some level, right? So I was no longer part of some key meetings and I had lost access to certain things. And God said, I tell you to lift up, I tell you it's time to move, but you're still here. So you know what happened? What happened was no, that I started to make some mistakes. But in that, while I was going through that at work, I was also having doors open up for me outside of that environment, doing things that I actually really want to do with my life. Because, like I said, marketing is my passion. And I had started a marketing business on the side, and I gained one client, and two clients, and three clients, and clients through my social media platform. And then I had my first speaking event in St. Vincent, and I had one online, and I had another one. And so things were happening outside of that. And I think God was really just pushing me in a different direction. So if you're listening to this, you have to learn how to listen to the cues within your environment, because when it's time for you to part ways with something, God is going to show you. You are going to know based on how you feel inside, your own intuition, and you're also going to know based on the things that are happening around you. But it's up to you to take that ultimate leap of faith. But something was triggered inside of me that I couldn't deny, because all these things were happening around me and happening to me and happening for me. And I still wasn't ready to make that decision until it would drive me crazy, literally. So it got to a point where it made me depressed. It made me anxious. It made me question myself. I was starting to make a lot of mistakes at work. And let me tell you, one day I made a mistake at work. It was so detrimental to me. And I said, you know what, this is it. And I just resigned. No clear plans, no nothing. I just wrote my letter of resignation and I said, you know what, this is it. I'm not staying here and ruining my great reputation. Because I refuse to listen to God. In parts of it, God will use your enemies, God will use your enemy, to propel you into the next phase of your life. And I won't even look at my workplace at the time as my enemy, because I really do have love for them. But I will look at it as the place that I needed to move from. Right? So in this case, when I say enemy, that's what I mean is that, it was a place that I needed to move from. And God was just using my surroundings to make me uncomfortable. So I was really uncomfortable and I just decided to leave and part ways with that job. And here I am right now. But that experience really shaped who I am today, because if my mother had not gone through certain things and if I had not gone through that, then I wouldn't be the Andrea that is sitting right here. No. I wouldn't be the person who is familiar with poverty, but I'm also familiar with wealth because my uncle was well off, right? My uncle could have provided for us in ways that I could never even imagine. My uncle gave me a life that I just couldn't have imagined when I was living with my mother, because he had everything to have given me at the time and he gave it to me. And for that, I will forever be grateful. I know I had a support system. I know I had food every day. I know I had, lunch money. I know I had a means to make money because they had like a little plaza. And they asked if whenever I used to work, I'd make my own money as well. And so I had that support system. I had a father in my uncle, even though he wasn't the mushy type either, but I knew I had him and I needed that. I needed him. And I give God thanks for him. I give God thanks for them because the Binders, they stuck together. And even though I knew my father never gave them any money, I knew my father never used to give them any money. But they never once said that your father not giving us any money or not giving you lunch money, or they never did that. My uncle used to give me lunch money just the same. So what was the purpose of me telling you all that about my story? It really wasn't so that you can feel sorry for me. It really wasn't so that you can say, oh my God, I can't believe that Andrea went through that. It was so you can realize that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't dictate where you go in life. Because the plan that society has for you is very different from the plan that God has for you. Nobody knows the hour, the minute, or the day that God is going to change their life. Not even I do. I don't know, but I know that God has something big in store for me. I took a leap of faith because throughout all of the seasons in my life, God has showed up for me. God showed up for me when my mother went to prison. God showed up for me in the moment when I didn't know who my dad was. God showed up for me when I was hungry. God showed up for me when I came to Canada and things were uncertain and I had to be working 3 jobs. God showed up for me in some miraculous ways that I can't even explain. So when God gave me the inclination to say, move, I moved, even though I did it reluctantly because I got comfortable. I got used to having a stable life. I knew in my heart that if God says move, then it must means that He has a door waiting for me to walk through. So if you're listening to this and you're in a transitional period of your life, walk through that door. Trust God. Make sure that you put God at the center of it, though, because if you don't do that, then it's going to feel confusing. It's going to feel like you don't really know what you're doing. But if you put God at the center of it, He will provide you some clarity. It will provide you certainty. And even in the moments when you get scared, God will give you some comfort in knowing that He's walking with you. Now, that was my story. I feel like it wouldn't have been fair to start off the show without telling my story. But it won't be like this every single week. We will talk about real stories, we will talk about real topics. And next week, I will have my son, Jabari, on the show with us, and we will talk about his challenge that he had with his addiction to marijuana. So stay tuned. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Comment down below if you have any topics that you'd like me to talk about, because we will be having some real and honest conversation right here on the heart of it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bless upon yourself.